Okay, so now we're gonna welcome Cleo from XR Germany. She's a French-German activist settled in Berlin, fighting for the transformation of our working world, fighting for social and ecological justice through spreading the practical skills, as well as the implementation of regional and circular economy. Her proposal, Get Angry, Get Organized.
Yeah, hello. I'm really touched because I have also children and I'm really impressed. Je suis très impressionnée par ton discours. Il était très beau. Merci. The summary was we have to protect the children and the planet, and if we build more cities, the planet is going to die and the children won't have future, and the people and the animals are going to die too. So we are not defending nature, we are nature defending itself. As you see me and my gray hair, you can guess I'm not so young anymore. I confess I am a boomer. How many trees have already been cut down for me? How many species has disappeared since I was born? How much plastic has reached the oceans directly related to my comfort? I'm a Western boomer, a fat capitalist worm who dig deep into the ecosystem. Il vous faut une traduction en français? Levez les mains. Okay. Je viens de dire que j'étais un boomer et que j'étais un gros ver pas capitaliste bien enfoncé dans l'écosystème. I am a boomer that have a very vivid remembrance of intact landscapes with much more animals and diversity than now. I remember walking through any German or French landscape, listening to the frogs in spring, watching the glowing, grabbling, flying insects, listening to such a broad variety of birds, and observing their different flight techniques, and not even thinking that they are in danger. Now, I'm more than half a century on Earth, and many of these species have visibly been reduced. Some of the birds that were for me completely normal are now on the red list or even extinct. The landscapes that made me dream have fallen to desertification or destruction. I can't tell you the grief I feel about that. La différence entre la planète aujourd'hui et il y a à peu près 50 ans quand je suis née est énorme. La destruction a progressé à une rapidité incroyable. Tous les animaux que je connaissais de mon enfance ont maintenant disparu ou sont devenus très rares. Ça me met dans un désespoir très profond. As it is now, our economic activities are destroying the web of life on this planet. Fossil capitalism, with its crazy global flow of goods, is taking us straight to hell. Almost everything must change. Effective global and national policies are needed to stop this madness, like the introduction of ecocide in our law system. At the moment, activists like us are fighting all over the world together to make this happen. The UN, the scientists, large parts of the population are standing behind us. Hopefully, we will soon reach the social tipping point that will finally force our government to act. And I think there are many ways to bring us to Rome. We have to have a diversification of techniques to engage and to invite people to join us. And what does climate justice mean in concrete terms, in your life, in my life, at our doorstep? Then the sentence, think global, act local, quickly comes into our mind. Building infrastructure for regional circular economy, establishing local places of learning for social ecological practices can bring us into the situation here on site, in the lion's den, to bring down capitalism. creating locations that enables us to collectively produce electricity and food, to repair our stuff, empowers us through self-sufficiency. And it actively makes us self-independent from exploitation locally and globally, including the precarious class, people with little money. The redistribution of wealth find in here concrete structures. And so local praxis is combined with global responsibility. We can answer to our basic needs in just that way. But how to approach this? How can we build power beyond our bubbles? We have lost somewhere in the neoliberal madness our power, the power of collective acting. It is time to get it back. Between the macro level of the European laws, the United Nations, the Paris Agreement, and the micro level, the counting of our individual footprint as a personal guilt currency, there is one level missing, the meso level, the power of community, of collective, local organization. This is the power we need now for the radical change to come. And I would like to invite you to a journey to the near future in 2026. Take a seat, close your eyes if you want, or not, it's your choice. Do you feel good? Do you stand good? It's okay? You're comfortable? Your breath is fluent. You feel your body? So, okay, let's start. We are at home in your city. If you live in the countryside, imagine visiting a friend in a town you know well. You leave your house. Maybe you have stairs to go down, and you open the door to the street. First, you see the garden, where just a few years ago there were parking lots full of cars. They have all been unsealed. Now only the middle of the street remains paved. You hear the birds chirping and singing. You sit for a moment on a tiny stone wall in the shadow of young trees, separating the big community garden from the bike and delivery lane, and you see for a few seconds a lizard before it disappears into a stone crack. You hear the leaves rustling on the ground. It's a hedgehog with his 2 children. You smell the intense aroma of ripening tomatoes. The community garden will provide the whole neighborhood with a serious amount of vegetables. That works because many of the neighbors give an afternoon or more of their time weekly to care about the garden. And it is easy because the community is guided and taught by a professional permaculture gardener, which position is funded by your city. On the other side of your street, there is a shop of the Farmers Cooperative, which also supplies your area. At the next crossroad, right next to the Library of Things and the self-organized seed bank, there is a neighborhood house where you meet, you chat, you organize, and sometimes you party, for sure. That's also the crossroad where the neighborhood canteen is, where you eat very often. You often stay there at night. This crossroad was used to be ugly, loud, and stinky, and now it is your village square. The street lights are red and dimmed, so they give light, but no harm to insects. These street lights are the norm all over the country now. And you walk along houses that are all vertical, vegetalized, with ivy and Virginia creeper, and in which so many birds breed and insects buzz. In between, there are solar panels installed. Their rendering is augmented by the cooling from the plants. All these changes mean that a lot of people are now working in new sectors, and also for you, it was a remarkable change in your life. You still do your old job, but only 2 or 3 days a week. You have started an apprenticeship in composting. You become an expert in soil, mushrooms, microorganisms, worms, and cockroaches. Other neighbors are apprentices in repair or textile reuse. So many new skills are flourishing in your community. You and the others in your neighborhood all go regularly to your transformation center in your city. It is a former airport, but as the whole country has only 2 airports left, these infrastructures went empty and free, and the new practices needed spaces. So you and other citizens occupied it, and finally, the mayor let you in. This is the space where the needed knowledge is shared, practical skills, but also things as self-organization, nonviolent communication, or how to build up a cooperative. That is stuff you can learn here. It is beautiful and very challenging what's happening here. The frequent heat waves endanger all the progress achieved, but you and your community have learned to be prepared. It now rains rarely and heavily, so you all have put rain barrels next to every house as a reserve for the drought months. And the rest of the water seeps into the many new forest gardens in your street. And smiling, you remember how mainly car horns and roaring could be heard in the dusty heat of the street. It is barely 2 years since you and many of your fellow citizens in your town, through organizing, open assemblies and strong strikes with all the people in the area, you could build the power of community to change a lot very quick. You built a network of scientists, of practitioners and activists in your region. So you had the capacity and knowledge to start the socio-ecological transformation. You run through actions of civil disobedience. You just started removing the tar and the pavement on your own. You planted, you blocked streets and factories, you blocked even schools and supermarkets. You all, and all the others, managed to get your region out of factory farming on January 2024. On the same date, the cut-down tree moratorium came into force, and 30% of the region was rewilded. The biggest enterprises, such as RWE, Total Energies, and Nestle, they were expropriated. Small-scale ecological farming is now the norm. Your region reaches around 80% of circularity in the use of materials, and ecocide is strongly punished. As well, the reserved areas for biodiversity are protected and harsh controlled. As that happened simultaneously in many regions, it had a strong impact on the European policy. No more import soja from South America. No more cutting trees for IKEA or pseudo-green heating. It was really a revolution of consciousness we needed. A revolution of imagination too. It was a revolution in the most literal sense. A return to a way of perceiving ourselves that has largely been lost. The idea that we are not only part of nature, we are nature. And we are together in being nature. We were not defending nature, we were nature defending itself. And we did concrete, simple things. So what can we do now? Now we are back to this scary 19th of June 2022. You can open your eyes, it was just a dream. What can we do in the middle of this crisis? So deep, so harsh. Go on, listen, talk, organize, regenerate, and repeat. Listen, talk, organize, regenerate, and repeat. Share your fears, share your feelings, share your hope and your knowledge. Discuss, even with the people who don't want to discuss with you. Help to stop the blindness against destruction. Giving up is not an option. The collapse of species and the heating we're confronted will be experienced in very, very different ways, depending on when we stop the emissions and the destruction, and also when and how we organize our adaptation. It is a collective job. Let us stay stubborn. Let us have still fun in our fights. Let us rebel for life. Thank you. J'ai pas traduit. Je suis désolée. Mais s'il y a des personnes qui veulent que je leur raconte un peu ce que j'ai proposé, venez vers moi, je vous le raconterai en français.